I think it's offline now. Yes. Can you hear me? Are you sure? Yes. Okay. So welcome to our second session of the workshop. I hope you've all completed your homework for this week, which were the interviews. Amedeo and Al will go through them. The deadline was until 1 p.m. today, so we'll go through them this week and give you some additional feedback about the questions, about the ideas, and so on. I also hope you've gotten a lot of different ideas about what you're trying to make with this application, and you've chosen your specific topic of interest, whatever that is, based on your experience maybe, or on your colleagues' experience, and so on. Today we're going to discuss a bit about how we're going towards the prototype, and you'll get another homework at the end until next week. There will be no live streamed session next week, but we'll make a recording of it, so you'll be able to download it or watch it on YouTube during the holidays. All right? So Amedeo is again with us, and I'll just transfer my mic to her, and let's continue with the second workshop. Thanks.
Works? Yeah? Okay, so for the few of you that are with me today, what's the problem that you've chosen to solve? Have you chosen a problem? Maybe?
We had loneliness in the first half, like social issues that we're trying to solve.
Interesting. Have you already done the interviews?
We haven't done the interviews, but we made the questions.
Okay. Cool. We can later on we can look at them, and we'll when we're finished with the live stream, and if you need some feedback and such. Okay. Let me see what. Yes, gonna work. Okay, so today we're gonna talk about a fitting interface, and what does that mean? We're gonna talk about guiding principles when we build interfaces, and a little bit about prototyping. So, the first thing that we need to talk about is what is good. So we usually say that an app is good or is not good, the user experience is good or is not good. But what is good? What does that mean? Because we have different levels on which we can kind of think about interface or design the interface. So the first important part of the interface is, of course, content. Content is the main thing that we show in the app. It's something that connects to our users. It's why our users are there. So it's very important that we design the content in the right form. So what do I mean by this? There are quite a few questions that we can ask ourselves. For example, is the materials that I have, is this a plain text? It's something that I'm going to be immersed in, or is something that needs to be structured? So am I building a reading app, or am I building a data analytics app, for example? Quite different use cases, which means that the content of it needs to be structured differently. Are we speaking in plain language, or are we using jargon? So are we making an app for like general public? Are we making an app for students? Can the language be playful? Or are we building this for a very specific profession which needs to resonate also in the app? Is the content superficial, something that I kind of skim through, for example, social media, or is it immersive? Is it something that I get pulled into, like actual media, for example? Is it straight to the point, or does it spark exploration? Meaning, do I need the information right away, or is the app meant to be used for a while, to explore, to find new things, to find new features, to kind of go on a journey? So all of these questions kind of help us define what our users need and how we can give this to them. The next level is styling. I'm sorry. So styling is what we usually call design, right? We talk about, when we say design, we usually think about something that's pretty, making a shape or form. So with styling, do our elements are very dense? Do they need to be very together? Do we need to present a whole lot of data on a single page? Or does it have to breathe because it needs, I don't know, a nice reading experience? So what kind of style does it have? Is it very utilitarian, so very straightforward, very strict, very straight to the point, or it's very expressive, meaning there's a lot of nice things to it, there are micro interactions, there are, I don't know, illustrations, it's playful, it's something more fancy, I would say. Should it favor clarity or again spark exploration? It's a different kind. Does the styling bring me around the app, or we're trying to keep it very clear and simple and concise and kind of not interfere with, I don't know, any kind of fancy designs, fancy colors, different fonts? Does that improve the experience or does it hinder it? Because too much design sometimes, too much styling can actually hinder the experience of the app. Should it auto-update content or not? So is it something that happens continuously, changes all the time, or is very static? All of this influences how our app looks like. And of course, last but not least, is the functions. Why are our users using our app? What are they going to do with it? Is it for consuming, so it's some kind of media, or is it made for creating? It's a tool. Quite different approaches to how we design it, how we structure the content, how we do the styling, what kind of functionalities there are. Should it be a quick stop or keep you engaged? This is interesting because when we usually look at metrics, if an app is successful or not, most companies go for two metrics. One is retention, so how often and how many times people keep coming back to the app, and the second time is how much time is spent in the app. But that's not necessarily universal metrics that say the app is successful, because sometimes the app is successful if users spend a really small amount of time there because they get to what they want to do so quickly and so fast and so successful that they don't have to stay in the app for much longer. And that could be a metric of success, actually. And for some apps, the success is, I don't know, for users to log in every 2 weeks, but spend 4 hours in there. Because it's a creation tool, it's something that helps them with the job, but they don't need it every day. So we have to be aware of these things. How do we design the app? And what is the best for the user? So it's not always just bringing them to the app and making them spend time inside. Should it be passive or provide some kind of interaction? So am I just looking at it? Am I reading through it? Is the content quite static? Or is it something that I interact with, I play with, I do things to it, I change it, I interact? Should it collect any data from the user? And here it doesn't mean just like analytics data or all the things that we collect in the background, but also does the user need to provide any kind of information so the app can work better for them? Because essentially what apps are, it's communication between us and other systems. So with designing the UI, what we're trying to do is create kind of a language that the user will understand, be able to speak it, meaning if they need to provide some information, create a form, things like that, and use that information in a way that would then help them achieve whatever they came there to achieve. So another question is something that changes over time? Is the app interchangeable? It's modular, or is something that's very static? Does it change with context? Does it change with different usage? Things like that. So can you think of any other examples of these kind of modalities? What else would be? Okay, I'll let you think about it when you do this for your own app, when you answer these questions. So another thing to be very mindful about is our criteria. So for designers, many times, especially when we come from graphic design, it's important that whatever we put out there is pixel perfect, it's very nice, it looks really good, but then we do it for the likes, we don't do it for actual use cases. And it's much more important than we do it for the use cases because they make or break the interface product and even business. So if we pay attention to these things, if we think about how our apps will be used, what is the context in which they will be used, all of these things are important. And if we think about this before actually doing the app, we will save ourselves quite some frustration. So the end users will be happy, the business will be happy, and we will be happy because there will be less things to fix later. Because one thing is to have something that looks good, and quite another thing is something that works well. If you're interested more in this topic, there's 2 resources I have here. So the first one is the Design of Everyday Things. That's the User Experience Bible. If you ask anybody, that will be the first book that they will recommend. And there's quite a nice lecture from Brett Victor at MIT Media Lab, Media for Thinking the Unthinkable, and it's a little bit about how to bring the technology and design together. So one of the things, especially for designers, again, who come from graphic design and like this classic school of design, it takes us a while to understand that the screens are actually expandable, and we're used to designing for like this fixed frames paper where things stand, don't change, don't break, right? We can make design pixel perfect, while in digital design, this is not really true. And it takes a while to understand this. Any questions up to here? Or thoughts or comments? Okay, let's talk about guiding principles then. So it's a bit of a checklist. When we're thinking about building a solution, there are some good practices that we should follow. Although all of these screenshots are quite old, the point underneath them still stands. So this used to be, I don't know how it looks right now, but this used to be the landing page of Airbnb. And like the most important thing that we can do as businesses, as digital product creators, is to always question what the users want or need to do in our app. Why did they come there? And for the users of Airbnb and for the business of Airbnb, the most important thing is for people to find places where they can sleep at a specific point in time. So what was there on the above the fold, the landing page? Straight the form, which asks where, when, and who, to get the results as soon as possible. Because there's, of course, other experiences and other usages of the Airbnb app. Like hosts have different experiences, but hosts also have different incentive because they will make money out of this. It's okay, they can look through the site, right? But the main people who are driving the whole thing is the people who travel. So we need that to actually run everything. And that's why this was the most important, and it was really there right in your face, because why would you want anything else? That's why you came to the site of Airbnb. We realized with the previous group that there is a part of this screenshot that's missing, the most important part, which says conversation move to trash, and there's a button for undo. It's really important. It's something that we talked about already previous week. People control the devices, not the other way around. So whatever we can do to help people either not redo mistakes, but fix mistakes they did. Like one of the best features Gmail ever did was to let you unsend an email. Because it happens to everybody. We send things we didn't mean to send. We sent emails that were not ready yet. We sent things without attachments and things like that. And like fixing our own mistake is very important. That gives us the control. Because again, we're trying to communicate with the system, and the system should be human in that way. We can fix mistakes in real life, so we should be able to do that also in digital products. Interaction equals feedback. So when we talk about interaction, rarely people understand what it actually means. So interaction means that I do something and something happens as a return information, as feedback. So there's action and there's a reaction. Then this is interaction. What this means in digital interfaces is something like this. So I pull the file to upload. The upload bar shows up. And even though everybody here understands that the upload bar is not actually true. It's not literally true. It doesn't really work in that way. But what it gives me as a user, like I don't need to know that, how it actually works in the back end. What I need to know is that my file has been uploaded at some point, and now I can go do different things, or that my action was actually successful. And the more we provide this kind of feedback, the less frustration from users we actually get. If there's anything that you'd like to comment on, or if there's an example or anything, please don't be shy. One other principle is using metaphors from actual human world. So we all understand that the bin in the computer is just another folder. There's nothing special about that folder, it's a folder. But when we say it's a bin, everybody understands that if we put things there, they will get discarded at some point, or they're in a place where we throw away things, right? And if we can do this, it makes, again, these systems that we're using, the technology, much more relatable, much more understandable, much less frustrating. And it's really important that we understand the language our apps are speaking. And however we can improve that, because again, it's communication, that always plays in our favor. In our favor. One that is very straightforward, but still happens a lot, is having the consistency in the app. So not having 15 shades and 15 sizes of buttons, but having the same button for the same type of action all over the app. And it's funny because this is something that is very, 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 very basic, very obvious, but still it happens quite a lot, especially when like the team members change, when somebody else comes into and starts building things. Either the team expands, either the team changes, things like that. So these things have become much better in last years, especially with like Figma having all the components and bringing design and development much closer together. But still, something that we both, as developers, as designers, should strive for is really to keep the consistency. And if you see that your designer is not consistent, like go there, talk to them, make this better, because it makes lives easier. Especially later, because when you will want to change things, and that moment always happens. Clarity over complexity. So again, an old screenshot of the landing page of PayPal. So at some point, they didn't have any kind of what PayPal is or something. All they wanted you to do is to log in as soon as possible with the least amount of problems, because when you're in the app, means you're doing something about it. You're either, I don't know, updating account, you're using the money, you're doing stuff with it, you're spending the money, you're paying them. And what do you want your users to do? Get in the app and use it. And the one on the right, form follows function. If if it's a button, it should act like a button. If it's a text field, it should look like a text field. And still, in this day, you get buttons that look like text fields and the other way around. And it's not just about the buttons and the text fields, of course. It's about all the elements. How can you show your user how to use this specific element that you used? How can you show them it's a text field? Like, put the cursor inside. Like, show them where they need to start filling the form. Make them aware this is a text field. And any other element that you're using. So this one is the one that is usually discarded or skipped the most. It talks about accessibility for everyone. So there's a very large amount of people that live with all kinds of impairments, be it hearing, be it seeing, or any other form. And the numbers are greater than we actually think they are. So if you're building something that's meant for general public, and even if not, like, this should be a consideration. Because if we take it into consideration to build this stuff in, it's much cheaper in terms of all kinds of resources than it is to put it like a cherry on top. And there are basic principles that we can do that are so simple, just like one of them being having high contrast, that are so easy, but we still don't do them. What precisely are the reasons? It depends. But if we can think about it more, if this is something that's in our awareness, we can do a lot of things with not a lot. So just something to be aware of. And then we have two last principles. So the first one is step by step. You can lead the user. So there was this thing a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago, that everything needs to happen in 3 clicks, which everybody then applied to the apps also. And it's not the same thing. One is, yes, on the website, if you're doing just like a promotional business website, you have to understand what your users are looking for so they can find it really fast. That's 3 clicks. But if you're doing an app and this app needs so much information, I don't know, it's 40 fields in a form. You're doing something very specific. And they need to fill this out for the app to actually work for them. It's quite okay to do this as a journey. You can do this step by step. It can have 20 steps. What we need to do is we need to show the user where they are at all points. We need to show them how they can move between these stages. We need to let them get out and come back in and continue when they want. We need to explain to them, like, is this going to take 20 minutes? Because if this is important to me, I will give to this 20 minutes, but maybe not at this precise moment, because right now I don't have 20 minutes. But I will come back later, and I will know, and I will be less frustrated than when in the middle of this, I figure out that, like, this is just not ending, and I don't know where I am, and I don't know how much do I need to fill out, because then I get annoyed, and you don't want your users annoyed. So creating kind of these comprehensible chunks, also depending on like what kind of information you need, putting them in steps, that's quite okay. Making it understandable, that they can see where they are, that they can see how can they progress, how well are they progressing, and like doing all the steps on how we can help them fill out these long forms and stuff is something that we can do and we should do. And the 10th last principle, which actually is very, very close to what I've been talking about up to now, is we want to try to prevent errors. So how many times, like, unless you're using the 1Passwords and things like that, like how many times when you're creating a password, it's still like you're missing this character, you add this character, and then you're missing a number, and then when you add a number, you don't have enough characters, and then just it kind of keeps telling you where you got it wrong, but all you want to do is get it right so you can do other stuff, because you're not there to create the strongest password there is. That's not the actual task. The actual task lies in the app. So why are we preventing people from actually getting in and doing this stuff? Like, this is very simple to do. And it's something we don't really do. So, to kind of combine what we went through. Trying to prevent errors. Let people know where they are. So again, something that we talked about last week when we talked about good and bad user experience. So many people said there's something about navigation, understanding where you are and how to get to the point where I need to go. Making the content understandable and digestible. So not giving too much, not making it overwhelming. All of this is how we build our interfaces. Okay. Any questions? I need to get some water. The fun thing about this is that all of this is really like obvious, but still we get it wrong all the time. So whatever we can do to fix this is really good. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is actually prototyping. So we're slowly building towards an actual thing. And how the process of prototyping usually works is we start with a brief or specification. If you remember, last time we had all those diamonds, and there was a point which said a brief or specification, and then we went into development diamond, where we talked about building different things and testing them as soon as possible, and then revising them, upgrading them, and then finding out like what's the thing that we want to do, and actually build that in code. Okay, so from that we have an idea which we build into a concept. Concept is already usually kind of a wireframes or something that gives an outline to the app. We can do this in various forms. I usually like to do it as a paper prototype. Why paper? Because it makes it it makes it tangible, but it also gives me this feeling that I can throw it away, because that prototype is to be thrown away. It's supposed to teach me, I'm supposed to learn from it, I'm supposed to test it as soon as possible. And when we go into all these design programs, we start building things, and then we get so excited by building that we just put so much effort into it, and then it becomes our baby, but our baby is ugly, and then we don't want to throw it away. So what we're trying to do with these things, we try to build small things that we can test as soon as possible, so we can get feedback, and then we can upgrade it. So this feedback is basically what is the validation, what it says on the screen. So when we're happy with this circle, we create another version of the prototype, which is usually interactive prototype. So this is something that we already built in Figma, something that is clickable. We can, again, test it and upgrade it, improve it. We can do a detailed prototype, which we usually call the low fidelity prototype. Again, we test it, and then we have kind of the final version. So one of the fun things about digital products is that the digital products are never done, which has a good thing to it and a bad thing to it. The bad thing is, like, we're going to be doing these things forever. And the good thing is that we can let go of our perfectionism, and things need to be perfect. Like, there will be other cycles where you will be able to fix what you haven't fixed now. It's more important to test, to get feedback, so you always know if you're doing things right, if you're going into the right direction, more than having like these pixel perfect designs that are very expensive, very big, and then putting that into code is also very expensive. So John Mida is a very smart guy who talks about all kinds of things, and quite a long time ago he said that if the picture is worth 1,000 words, the prototype is worth 1,000 meetings, which is quite a tall order, but it's true, because it's quite different if we can look at somebody using what we built, or we built it together, than it's just if we just talk about different concepts and things we have in our head. I'm going to tell you more about this later. So prototype is an early version of a thing. It could be anything, basically. It can be an object, it can be a process, it can be a model, a system, like everything we can prototype. We can prototype also life choices. It's an early version of a thing, so we can try things and get feedback, see how it works, and then improve it. One of the most where prototyping not really began, but which most people know, is the example of the car industry. So they build these clay car prototypes before they built the tools for making actual hulls. So they understand like how is the car going to look like, and that is made like to precision, and that's a prototype. So prototypes can be useful in all kinds of businesses. Basically everything should be a prototype. But what prototype is not, it's not a presentation and it's not a description. Prototype always shows how a solution works. What usually happens is that, I don't know, a design team does something in Figma, and then we have this meeting with stakeholders where the designers present their prototype and saying, oh, so you click here and this happens, and you click here and this happens. That's not the a prototype. That's a presentation. Let people use it, let people click through it, let people figure things out. Like we had an example at work a few weeks ago. Another team built a thing. There was something with printers. It doesn't really matter what it was. They were supposed to have a demo in front of our clients, and one of the team members that was in charge wasn't really prepared for the printing and stuff. So they actually asked the person who will be doing this later on to actually use it in production in a live environment. And of course, everything went wrong. But the good thing was that the whole team actually saw how the thing was used in the whole process. So everything was fixed in like 2 days. I don't recommend doing this in production, but like we can do this before. That's why we prototype. And just showing people that we're building stuff for, how it's used, that's not the way to do it. They should use it. We should see how this works. What are they thinking? What are they seeing? What do they understand? Because their view is different than ours. Have you seen this already? Yeah? So the fun thing about it is that this was first drawn in the 70s of the previous century, and we still cannot get it right. But the prototyping is here to help. Because one thing is if we talk about something, another thing is if we either build things together, if we draw things together, or if we experience things together. It's quite different if we can see what our users are thinking when they're using the app. It's quite different if we can see what our stakeholders are thinking when they're using the app. We can build, and this is not just about prototyping, it's about visualization as a whole, so you can visualize different things, like user flows are visualization. So everything that kind of puts things from our head onto the paper or onto the screen, that gives us a better perspective of what we're actually talking about. Because what we talk about, what one person speaks about and the other person understands, is based on our upbringings, our schooling, our experiences, the culture we grew up in, like all these things, and no two people can actually see things in the same way. So that's why we're trying to break this with prototyping. So I'm going to show you a few different methods of prototypes. So I already mentioned paper prototypes. Again, why do I like them? Is because they're really fast and because they give you this sense of, yes, I'm going to throw this away. When I put too much effort into building something in Figma or any other design tool, I get attached. I don't want to throw it away. Like, I keep on building on the thing. But if I do it in paper, like, it's not going to stay in paper. We're doing a digital thing in the end. So the one on the right is actually my prototype. I used to work at a company where we did medical devices, and I had this testing with a doctor that we had an idea for an app, and there was so many interactions that I couldn't really prototype. Nowadays, so this has been quite some years ago, nowadays this in Figma would be possible with all the components and things, but there were too many options at that point. So we couldn't move this testing, and I was without a prototype, so I thought about what would be like the easiest thing to do this, to test this idea. And it was basically drawing a cardboard computer, and when the doctor pressed the button, I would stick Post-its on it, and it actually worked. Why? Because it was the interaction that I was testing. It was simple, and even though it might look like child play, like nobody really thought it as child play. Like it did what it was supposed to do. The doctor was impressed. My CEO in the end was impressed, which was kind of interesting, which I didn't expect at the time. But what I'm trying to say is when we're trying to build prototypes, we're trying to learn as fast as possible. So we're trying to build things that we will discard and things that will tell us something. So we shouldn't give too much of time into it. Give more time into the testing that you do into the prototype. I'm gonna show you a video.
Hi there. Can I have a couple of bread rolls, please?
Yes, no problem. Have you shopped with us before?
No, not recently, but I think I came here when I was little.
We'll just have to register you then. What's your date of birth?
23rd of June, 1993.
Lovely. And can you confirm your full name for me, please?
Lucy Manon Daniels.
Lovely. Mother's maiden name?
Jones.
First car?
Oh, I don't have a car.
Favourite teacher then?
Mrs. Day.
Sorry, not enough characters.
Mr. Williams, then.
Lovely. Brown or white?
I think he was...
The rolls, brown or white?
Oh, sorry, white, please.
Could you just look through this for me, please?
Okay.
Just tell me which one's got cars in.
Middle right, bottom right.
Lovely. You're not a robot.
That's a relief.
And when would you like these rolls?
I'd like them now, please.
Will you be here today between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m.?
Well, I'm here at 11:34, actually, ready for my rolls.
Did you know you could track your rolls?
No, but I'll just have them now, thanks.
You just need to agree to our terms and conditions.
I agree to the terms and conditions.
And just to confirm your purchase, you'll get a number on your phone.
Hasn't come through yet. Oh, here we are. 554762.
No, that number's wrong. Sorry, goodbye.
You've expressed an interest in buying bread in the past. Would you like some sourdough?
No, thank you. I'll just have 2 bread rolls, white, please. Thanks.
No problem. If I could take your full name, please.
Oh, this is ridiculous. I just want a couple of bread rolls. I mean, who's in charge here? Is there someone I can speak to?
Of course.
Oh.
Thanks for reaching out to us today. I'm Corey, and how can I help you?
Thank you. I just wanted to buy 2 bread rolls, white, and I was ready to buy them. I had the money and everything, but the code thing on my phone didn't work, and the first guy just left, and then the second lady wasn't very helpful, and I kind of lost my temper with her a little bit, but I know it's not your fault. But I just want 2 bread rolls, white, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'll see if I can look into this for you now.
I mean, it's literally just over...
So first of all, I'm going to need your name and your date of birth.
Oh, this is stupid. This is stupid. I just want a couple of bread rolls.
So, Opa, this was obviously a parody, but is the struggle real? Yeah, definitely, right? This is how our interfaces talk to us. No wonder why this is frustrating. But one of the good prototyping tools is actually acting out. And again, it's something that comes off as, we think of it as child play, but theatrical methods are really, really good to help us understand what the communication is like between us and these devices. And so I have friends that were working on a dating app in Germany, and they would actually prototype this by having people act out. One was the app, and the other two were the potential couple, and just thinking about talking through these options of what kind of language do we use, what kind of questions do we pose, like how to make it as human as possible. That's a good. That's a nice tool to do. Sorry to everybody who's watching. Desktop prototypes are usually used for mapping out systems. If you have different touch points, if you have more apps, if you have different systems that connect to one another, different locations, we can do desktop prototypes and see the connections of them. And of course, the ones that you already know are the low fidelity prototypes. So one version of this is wireframes that are a little bit more basic than this, but this already has actual content in it. So we're no longer using lorem ipsum and like fake things. What we're trying to do now, so like a few years ago, some years ago, it was very popular to first do the design and then do the content. And that always backfires because you have to start with the content. You have to know what you're saying, to whom you are saying it, and what these people need. So here we start with the content, and then design and everything comes secondary. We do think about how to present the content in the right way, so the fitting interface that we talked in the beginning about. But here we really focus on what the app needs to do, what the app needs from the user, what the app needs to do for the user. So in the company that I've mentioned before, we've been doing this product for quite a while. We had a design system. It was really easy for us to build these high fidelity prototypes that were all nice and looked like everything's working. But we went from that to doing the low fidelity prototypes. Why? Because then everybody was only giving feedback on the design, and everybody was talking about, why is this button orange? And here we can focus on what is the actual content. We use this type of prototypes for validation, to test, to get things right. And then we do high fidelity prototypes. So we design all the screens, we design all the states, we have the branding on, we have the colors, we have the right fonts. And these are used for two things. One is the usability testings, where we actually test Do people see the orange button? Is it well positioned? Can people progress? Can people do stuff with this? And the second part, we use it for the development handoff. So making high fidelity things so the development team can know what is everything that they need to build. How does it look? How does it function? So this is usually then how it looks like in Figma, all connected. But this is one of the charts that I think is very important. We have some prototypes that we use to learn, and then we have some that we use for design and to define, basically. And when we're trying to learn, the fidelity can be very low, meaning we can have black and white things, we can have paper things, we can keep it as simple as possible, just in the concepts, but thinking already about content. And depending on how sure we are the solution is going to work, and this I don't mean only like the functionalities can take me from point A to point B, but also there's market for this, about all those validation steps that we talked about the last time. If I'm very sure I'm heading the right direction, my prototypes will be more high fidelity because it's a different purpose then. I'm no longer using them to learn, I'm using them to hand off, to show, to sell, to present. Saying that, also, we always have to take into account what do we need the prototypes for, what kind of validation. So I will give you an example. You will do low fidelity prototypes so you can test with other students. We had a project where we were working with this big telco. They had an idea for the app, and we created a very high fidelity prototype which looked like it worked, like we've already built everything, so they can actually test it and get feedback on a big fair. So it was already kind of a sales validation. They were looking if people were so interested that they would be interested of buying this. And for that case, making a high fidelity prototype, putting a lot of hours into it, making it very detailed and perfect, made sense. Because it was a big investment, there were different types of validations that we needed to do. So, are there any questions around prototyping and stuff? You have already done some in the first half of the semester. How did it go? Okay. Happy with Figma? It's interesting? Okay. Okay, let me just go through the homework. And then we'll sign off from the live stream, and we can talk if you need.
Individual projects.
Yeah. So on this link in FigJam, the session 2 is now open. Talk about what's a fitting interface for you. So what kind of app do you need to build? How does it need to look like? Based on the insight you've gotten from the interviews. Write it down in FigJam, and then the second part is creating your first prototype. So basically think about what are already the functionalities that will help you solve this problem. When I'm talking about functionality, don't don't do 17 features. It's better to do, I don't know, 15 screens and do them really well and make them very smooth than do 50 and nothing sticks together. We don't have to have 16,000 features to make our apps valuable. It's better to have 2 that work really well and are catered to what we are solving. So think about what are the elements that your app should have. Do it in Figma. So you're already thinking about how it looks. You can use design libraries or design systems that are available. So Figma community has a lot of resources that you can already use. Think about, is this something that's desktop? Is it something that's mobile? What kind of device your app will live on? And create something that's low fidelity. Next week, we're gonna post the recording of the next lecture, so we won't meet live. The lecture will be about how to prepare for testing. You will actually do the testing, get feedback on the app you will build, and then upgrade it from the 6th to 13th. We have the final presentations on the 13th of January, and on the 6th we'll have consultations here. So no more lectures like this, just looking at your projects. Okay? Anything I forgot?
We'll go. Thanks. So, Amadea and I will go through your Figma interviews. We'll give you some feedback, probably on Učilnica. So please make your links available to us in terms of permissions to share and access. And we'll give you some feedbacks because you might have some issues with the interviews themselves and you might want to reevaluate during this time. The deadline was until today at 1, so probably all the groups have submitted their homework until then. During next week, I'll be available because I'll be at the faculty. I'll be available for individual consultations. You can write me an email or you can write me via Discord, and we can meet either in person or online. And please don't forget, the final week will be here very, very soon. So please keep that in mind and start working on the first prototype and then on the next prototype and testing gradually but fast enough for you to actually complete the task. The homework can be submitted via the same link. I'll provide another submission form, but you can use the same link basically with a different page or put it wherever on the page you want to. So we'll be able, so you won't have the issue of sharing the Figma link again, and you will be able to work on it continuously within the same Figma project. If there are no online questions or in-person questions, we'll now finish the live stream and see you next week only virtually or virtually plus in person for individual consultations. Thank you for joining us and happy holidays in 2 weeks. Gracias. Okay.